Hey, come on over here.
There he, Coach
This
is great. I didn't realize you were here. Coach, how are you? How are you?
Hey,
Go.
Hey.
Pleasure to meet you, man.
Pleasure to meet you. Hey, first off, can we talk about his hair? Jesus Christ, look at it.
Please have a seat.
God.
Are you? Okay, you are.
Okay,
This is great.
Okay, so.
We were just talking about you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I said that about Francis Ngannou, how did you feel?
I remember you. Okay, so listen.
By the way, everyone.
First off, congratulations on that fight. It was absolutely amazing.
Can I just introduce him? Eric Nicksick, 2023 Coach of the Year, Extreme Couture, the man.
Hey.
Great hairstyle, great haircut. It's amazing. Okay, go, please. This is great.
Anytime anybody of your capacity says something about a fight, you have to look at it from different perspective.
Absolutely.
So so one of the guys, I just got off the phone with him actually, that I call regularly is Dean Thomas.
Dean.
Because Coach Dean will always give me the right, insightful thing that I need to hear, not what I want to hear. So when we get so caught up when you game plan or you do certain things, as I'm sure you would, you get tunnel vision and you get locked in on certain techniques and certain topics and certain this. But why does a sniper have somebody that sits next to him and looks at the entire environment? The sniper is focused on looking down the center of that scope. But then you have somebody that looks at the landscape. Are we getting flanked? There's this, there's that. So when you say something, I don't look at it as like, oh, that hurt my feelings. I look at it like, oh, we didn't check that box, or we didn't think about this, or we didn't add to that, or next time, that's a great point, we're gonna bring that up. So I think you have to set your ego aside is my point. I think the sport always has that like, oh, well, I know everything. No, you don't. To be a good coach, you have to remain coachable. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, so why are you asking him this? Because, are you referring to the Francis thing?
Yeah.
Okay, because he said, and I think you said you wanted a little bit more color on it, that he said that Anthony in an MMA fight could beat.
Sure.
What was your reaction when you heard this?
My reaction is nothing. My reaction is, well, he sees something. Well, what is it that he sees so I can learn from that and go, okay, we have to hide this hole, right? We have to cover this up. So what he's saying is, because the way Anthony got on Francis so fast off his striking reads, with 4-ounce gloves, that would be a problem. So what it tells me is, okay, where did we have our issues right away? Distance, covering distance, hands coming down, certain things like that Francis may have gotten away from or away with in the Tyson Fury fight that, credit to Ben Davison and that crew, they exploited. The moment we went to Southpaw, he jumped on us. They were ready for that. Yep. So there was things that I think we needed to do better. So if this was an MMA fight, what would we've seen anecdotally that would have changed that same outcome if it was in just MMA? We would have gotten slept, 4-ounce gloves or not. So it tells me, hey, well, we have to show the element of level change. We have to kick the lead leg out. We have to do other things to keep distance, cut the cage off, and then blast double that fucker and put him on his back. Then it's in our realm, So what he's saying is absolutely true.
Your thoughts?
But the fact that he said that and he's talking about the distance and he changes and they exploited one thing where Francis in his past, he's been able to be successful with that because somebody's not been able to exploit that, right? And for him, that's why he's Coach of the Year, because he sees that. He goes, ooh, I never thought about that. And he's flipped in that right there. This is where you know you have an amazing coach. And his mindset in the game is a higher level to where other people are like, no, that wouldn't happen. He was like, let me take a step back.
Yeah.
Let me think about that. Instead of everybody out there and all the fucking naysayers are like, oh, no, you know what you're talking about. I was like, you guys, that's why you guys watch the sport. You watch great coaches like this bring amazing athletes to world championship level. And so for me to hear that, I'm happy to hear that, right? It's not a dig. It's like I'm seeing something. And I'm like, ooh. And he just said it. He can exploit that. They exploit it and they saw it and they jumped on it. And I'm just saying, let's say Francis, they never fought. Let's say they never fought before, right? And Anthony Joshua were to fight. And let's say Francis goes, I'm going to go southpaw on this motherfucker. In MMA, he goes southpaw, he goes, there's something.
Ready for that.
He wasn't ready for that, right? So, and I'm saying when Anthony Joshua, if they were to fight, this is all hypothetical, right? If they were to fight, the one thing Anthony Joshua hasn't been exposed to is the blast double and the kicks. So a good coach, they would watch Francis Ngannou's fights, but okay, we got to worry about his kicks, we got to worry about his double. okay, we'll start defending leg kicks, we're defending double. But we have mastered and can hopefully exploit him on the feet because we've been doing it a lot longer to people in the past. I'm sure anybody, the next person who fights Anthony let's say, Jake Paul and Francis Ngannou fight. Or who's the guy that Francis is about to fight next in the PFL? The tall guy. Renan Ferreira. He will sit there and watch that fight and goes, okay, we need to check the leg kick. We don't have to worry about Francis wrestling us. He's never going to wrestle, right? He hasn't shown it yet. So we're going to put it in the back. But we can't get to him with our hands because we are longer than him. So Francis is going to be like, hey, I want to play that outside game, make him miss. And then when I get the chance, I get inside that rim, I'm going to be working outside that arc to force him to turn. And I'm going to close him and I'm going to wrestle and do whatever, right? So
can I throw out one rebuttal with all due respect? Perhaps you'll agree with me?
Kick his ass, man.
I did see a little wrestling in Cyril Gane from Big Francis.
He did.
Did I not? Right?
He did. He did.
Yes.
And when he did that, the bigger takedowns came from Cyril Gane trying to kick Francis Ngannou. So if I was to coach Anthony Joshua, I'm like, we're not kicking him. I want you to be in a good position to where when Francis does shoot,
down block, and
I'm going to be in a good position where I'm pop and get his head off me, and my right hand's going to land. Because I was working with another athlete, I'm like, why are you shooting? He goes, he's a younger athlete coming up. His name is Brandon. We train together. And then he shot him. And I'm like, why the fuck are you shooting? He goes,
he had no rhyme or reason why.
He had no rhyme or reason.
Why.
He didn't understand why. And I'm like, why are you shooting? He goes, because I'm trying to get to you. And I was like, just walk towards me. And he goes, well.
We'll do that a lot. Like just what he's saying, it becomes a nature of like, I'm panicking.
Yep.
Call it panic wrestle.
Yep.
So you put somebody in a position where they're like, what is their number one instinct? Is it to throw an overhand? Is it to throw a check hook? Is it to shoot? You know, so when you put somebody on their back foot in panic mode, you're going to draw out their first natural panic instinct, and that's usually to wrestle if you come from a wrestling pedigree.
Yep. And if he wrestled, and let's say Anthony Joshua was like, oh, he's wrestling, I'm going to sprawl, then Francis Ngannou's going to succeed in a takedown. But if I say, okay, when he panicked, if Francis was to panic wrestle, don't sprawl. Don't even react. Just get his face up.
Yeah.
Then he's in a better position to. Then they're going to get back into boxing, right? So that's my mindset. How I'm looking at it, right? So
how many times have you? Hold on, I love that.
I just don't want to say it. This is so fun.
I love this. How many times though, like on the flip side, even not even the panic wrestle, when you see a guy hurt somebody, and they shoot on him, you're like, well, why'd they shoot? And there's a panic to them in that I got to get this finish, but they go right to what their natural instinct is. Like, why did you just grapple there?
Right.
You know, like, yeah, no, I completely agree. I got to say, man, like, going back and watching like some of your old stuff, how
that was horrible.
No, but I mean, but how far ahead of the curve you were in understanding that there is no stance. There was no stance for you. Like you can hit from both stances, but the angles that you created were important because it wasn't necessarily about the offense, but you were sound defensively as well. I think a lot of people love to switch stances, but the cost of that is not having good defense on the backside, right? But early on, the evolution of what to me MMA became was in his era, the one Joe Benavidez and Mighty Mouse doing things out of both stances, but so clean and so pure that allowed like the later groups of guys, the Corey Sandhagens, if you will, and to kind of grow and develop into what he does. So man, like that was something like for me as a young coach or young guy coming up that I love to study about your game was not only that, but Coach Follis used to always say the space between the notes makes the music.
Yep.
So when you would hit a combination, your feint game, and watching dudes trying to react to what the hell was coming at them next, to me was one of your best attributes, you know, which made you the GOAT, in my opinion, in a lot of those things.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that,
of course,
baby.
bro.
But I look at my old fights, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I moved too much, all that moving, Hey, amazing job. Congratulations.
Thank you,
I'm so proud of you and Francis, what you guys did, and sticking to your guns and getting what you guys are worth. I cannot wait to the next fight. He's not going to do, this is your show. All right. Hey. Peace out. Hey, good job.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Love to see you, man. If you're in town, come by.
Absolutely. You're at Extreme Couture.
Yes, sir.
You're working with that 125er. Me and him went at it one time.
Who's that?
Poonji?
Oh, Pooney.
Pooney, yeah.
Pooney.
But he's been doing pretty good. I can give you guys your mic. Bye.
I love it.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
My
thank you,
pleasure.
DJ. You're the man. Appreciate you. Eric, thank you for coming right after sparring, right?
Yeah, we had big guys sparring today, and then I worked with Julian Rosa, Kai Kamaka, shot straight over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I was trying to rack my brain. Is it possible that you have no one on this card on Saturday?
So I helped Aljo.
Okay.
I helped him a lot. Aljo's basically out here. He's based out here.
Yes.
He does a lot of his stuff. So we ran a lot of his drill sessions. I'm obviously very close with Tyson. I'm very close with Calvin. a lot of the politics in between didn't make sense for me to be in the corner. At like a backup or second or third capacity. You know, he has a great relationship with Ray. He's got Marab. He's got Dennis. He's got great guys behind him. So, but when he's at home, like home meaning Vegas, he trains with us, and he's a great teammate, man. He's phenomenal. So we have a small group that we train with on Wednesdays, and Aljo brings a lot of value to the gym. So he's a great guy, and I love having him.
Did you do anything with Jamal?
I did. So with Jamal, I helped him a lot during his rehab. I held pads for him and did some stuff with him, just helping him during his rehab. But moreover, just kind of being there for him. So I think Jamal has a very great MMA mind. So when he was hurt, I would text him. I'm like, yo, come to sparring. Watch sparring. Don't just sit at home. I want you to be there because you have a voice, you have a name, and guys are going to listen to you, like corner. But keep your mental game sharp. And he was like, you know what, coach, you're right. So he would come in and he would corner Sean Strickland, or he would help with this guy or that guy. But it kept him in the game rather than just sitting around and, like, you know how that gets, man, especially with an injury.
Of course.
So it was more just kind of helping not only rehab his Achilles, but helping rehab his mind. And then, you know, when he gets into camp, that's his team. That's where he should be.
I'm blown away that he's back this soon. Is that a surprise to you?
That type of injury, yeah. The
like
Achilles,
a year or so.
I mean, what was Durant out for? It was like a year and a half.
Well over a year. Kobe
crazy.
Bryant. I know these guys are older and they're doing different things, but because it's MMA, I thought it would be perhaps even longer.
Yeah. From my experience with the Achilles, I was definitely surprised. But I'll tell you what, Ariel, when I was holding pads for him, I'm like, God damn, maybe he's hiding it well, but this dude can crack. And if it was on one leg, you know, God forbid if, you know, this was 6-7 weeks ago. So hopefully he's even gotten better during that time.
By the way, why do you, and there's so much to talk to you about, but I'm just curious, since we're talking about guys like popping in and out, why do you do those pictures with the blurred faces? What's the reason for that?
So I have one of my best friends I grew up with. He was a SEAL Team 6 guy.
Okay.
And I talk a lot to him about building culture, teams. How do you grow and how do you develop? And if you think of like the MMA floor as all of us being Navy SEALs, right? I'm not trying to steal credit. I'm trying to give credit to the upper echelon of warriors. And I think special forces are that. They're doing things at the capacity of life or death. We're not doing that. But what I'm talking about is the ethos, like the ideologies of what they do to build team. And when you think about the Navy SEALs, they're all warriors, they're all great at what they do. And then there's the Team 6 guys, the upper echelon, the tip of the spear guys. And that little group is, they're called development group, dev group. But what I love about them is they're developing new tactics, strategies, procedures, and doing all these things. And it's not necessarily a practice where there's a coach telling you what to do. Everyone has a voice in that small group. And so I love that practice because like Mike Pyle's in there, he'll show a little something. Ige might show a little something. Lance Palmer, Aljo, Kai, whatever. And it becomes more of a developing situation of like, how do we do better techniques, better tactics, better procedures? And we all leave that practice like, oh, dude, that was awesome. And sometimes you really don't have like a huge plan of what we're going to do, maybe just some meat and potatoes, and then it develops into something completely different for that practice. So the blurred faces is kind of a homage to like when you saw the guys go in and kill Bin Laden, and they blurred out their faces. So that's why we do blur the faces. And
you try to see like who's he with, you know,
yeah,
like
exactly,
see by their body, see like the physique. But okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if there was you were trying to protect anyone.
No, nothing. It's just us being goofballs, you know. And but we definitely want to pay homage to like that upper echelon of what those guys, the elite of the elite in the military, do, because, you know, we're not trying to be like them in that regard. What we're trying to be like is who they are as a team. Okay. The camaraderie and what they're trying to build culturally. And you know, obviously Danny Ige's dad is high up, does his thing, but you know, we draw a lot of inspiration from that as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Dan.
In what are you allowed to say?
I think we can say because he got in trouble last time for it. But he's a Navy SEAL, but he's up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Respect.
Yeah.
It's April 11th, 2024, March 8th. That date, that night, morning, really. It was like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
How do you feel a month later about what transpired?
It's hard to say because I think when you look at the thing, you always want to just win or lose. You want to see how you could have done things better. And I wasn't there, but only for the 2 weeks, so I didn't get to see a whole lot of camp. But I spoke with Dewey like every other day, or we had conversations, and everything that sounded to me like camp went great. And when I got there and watched Francis spar, man, he looked amazing. Like, he was sparring guys that have always given him trouble, and then our last hard spar, like, he looked unbelievable. So I think that you have to give credit to Anthony Joshua first. You have to give credit to Ben Davidson on the game plan. And then you also have to look at things that we could have done better on our end. Now, like, the showing up we had to be there at 11, AJ showing up at 1:30, like all those little things, like, you were there, it just felt weird. And then, like, when I was sitting here and Francis sitting next to me, a couple times Francis looked over to me, he's like, Bubba, I'm tired, man. I'm like, yeah, I bet. It's 1 in the morning and we haven't even started moving around yet. So just little things like that. So I look at it like we should have had a harder warm up, maybe a longer warm up, things like that to get the motor running, get his eyes going a little bit better. So you can take a lot out of this fight, and I think we can be better in a lot of areas. But all in all, like, I think for me, from a personal level, the hard part was seeing my guy like that.
Yeah.
I've never seen him hurt, never seen damage on him like that. And that one, I was like, more you're like your friend,
Yeah,
like,
it was scary,
It was
right?
scary, yeah.
He was down
100%.
for a minute there.
He was down for a minute, yeah.
What is going through your mind?
Just that he's going to be okay. Like, he's okay. He's going to be fine, and just trying to just stay calm. Because I think a lot of that is like your energy that you're giving off. If I'm freaking out and nervous, then that's going to proceed on to everybody else. So just trying to stay calm in the moment and say a little prayer and, hope everything's okay. And it was.
Were you getting, he told me about like feeling tired and whatnot. And I think some people took that as like him making excuses. I appreciate the honesty.
Sure.
I'm asking him. He's not willingly saying like, hey, everyone, I want to let you know that I was tired. No, you're telling us the story of the night and things happen. Are you getting nervous when you're hearing this? Is this a common thing to hear from him?
It was different because when you and I talked in the back, and you remember you brought it up, he's like, he's very calm. And that is typically how he always is. He's very calm. But you're looking back at it, you're right in the point, because it wasn't necessarily that it was calm. He was just actually like ready to fall asleep.
Wow.
Moreover, like when we were in Jacksonville and we fought on the first fight during the pandemic, he was kind of just like, chill and relaxed, and then it was time to go. He beat the crap out of me during the warm up, and then we went out and did our thing. So I've seen both sides of that, but now looking back at it, it was a different type of like, it wasn't necessarily calm, it was more tired.
Okay.
And yeah, it's not an excuse, it's fact. Like, guys get staph, guys have staph infections, guys have injuries. It's not making excuses or it's not saying anything, it's just bringing up the actual facts that happened during the fight.
Obviously, fighters are different, coaches are different. Did that scenario, did the fight playing out like that ever cross your mind?
Oh, never.
Never.
Not like that. Not like that. Like, not like that. And maybe that should have been more of our focus. Like, we all knew AJ was dangerous. We never overlooked him. There was none of that stuff. But I also felt like Francis got even better than when he fought Tyson Fury, during that time. I feel like he improved in a lot of things too. And I think they did a really good job of being prepared from what they saw on tape from us in boxing. I think they did a great job, but not to the capacity of what we saw, like him just getting dropped 3 times in a round and a half. We're like, oh, dude, never expected that.
Do you think the fight goes any different if he doesn't switch stances? If he just stays orthodox the whole time? Maybe he loses, but like, do you they talked a lot about this afterwards. Once he switched stances, they knew that there was the opening.
Sure.
And so I'm wondering if there's any regret there.
Yes and no. I think Francis is very good out of southpaw. He does a lot of good things there. But where he decided to switch stances wasn't the correct position, where AJ was moving and already had beaten him on a certain position. So when he switched, AJ had lead foot superiority in that stance. And then he kind of gobbled up the space, and then you saw him kind of square up where, like, AJ's foot was on the outside, and it was the right cross that landed. And it was very quick. Mm-hmm. I mean, he wasn't in southpaw very long. What AJ did very well was he gave Francis one, like, hey, here's where the punch is going to go. And watch what Francis did was he rear hand parried down. And AJ showed the same stance, made him look, and what did Francis do with his hand? And the punch came right over top of it. So, I mean, it was brilliant. They did a great job. We were over defensing things. If you remember, like, Francis was a little fidgety.
Yeah.
Parrying a little heavier,
Yeah.
Saw him with his hands getting out of position, and they took advantage of that.
What was it like in the back?
After?
Yeah.
It was hard. It was hard because like I've never really like we lost to Tyson Fury, but we didn't lose,
Yeah,
you know. So it was. I
it.
FaceTimed you.
Yes,
you know, like
really.
it was different, you know, and that had a very different connotation because you know since 2019 I've been with him and we've never lost, like really lost to that fashion. So it just felt like I don't know, it just felt very very new to me in that moment, but. You know, it was like your brother. I just wanted to just give the dude a hug and tell him I loved him, and you know, but moreover, just making sure that his health was okay.
This is such a. It could be a very cruel game. You don't need me to tell you that, but like you know, talking about Coach of the Year and whatnot, and then you have Sean in January, and this.
Yeah.
It's like freaking highest of highs, lowest of lows.
Yeah.
How do you handle that? Because it felt like you and your team were unstoppable in 2023.
For sure.
And there's still plenty, and you're going to turn it around.
Right.
And everyone loses.
Right.
But for it to happen so quickly after all this love and attention that you and the team were getting in 2023, and then it's January, Sean, and then this is March. How do you handle that and not let it get you too down?
Well, because that's what I love so much about this sport. You know, you get into the sport to get the wins, and things are going to follow behind those wins, but it's the losses that really make you better and make you who you are and make you hungry and make you realize why you're in this sport, you know. And it's a close split decision versus Sean, and people argue this or that. I look at it like, hey, here's the things we could have done better to make it not a split decision. We can be better in those areas. So get right back to work. You know, you get 1 or 2 days to pout about it, and then you got to move on for the next guy. And like Chris Curtis, man, that one stung. Like, especially just because how much we love Chris and the type of individual that he is. And he was so close to winning that fight. And then he gets a hamstring injury. I was a mess for 2 days, you know. And then come Monday, there's a whole stable of people that are relying on you to be at your best, to be on top of your game. And that's what, like, to me, just keep that steady as it goes. And you can't be too high on some of that stuff, man.
You don't get in a funk where it's like, man, fuck this. I don't want to do this. Like Chris Curtis, my guy, he takes a fight on short notice, torn hamstring, so close. Like,
yeah.
Maybe the last place you want to be, human instinct, is in the gym on Monday.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to go for a freaking walk. Like, you don't deal with that?
I do. And then that's why, like, I need my wife. Because, like, Saturday I got home, I said, we're going to dinner. And we went and I had, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 old fashions. I cried, I got mad, I screamed, I yelled. You know, I got it out of me. And then instead of just shoving it deep down, which I've used to do, like, oh, I'm good, and then whatever, and then it just explodes. You know, it's just different sometimes with certain fighters. And those types of fights, especially when it comes down to like inches, and you're like, dude, he's there, we won, we didn't win, you know, whatever. And then to have the injury, that really hurt my heart, just because now he's going to be out anywhere from 6 months to 9 months or whatever with the hamstring, depending on.
How is he doing?
He's good. I mean, the guy's been in the gym every day.
Jeez,
he's on a crutch. He's in the gym every day, and he's hanging out and he's coaching.
Wow.
Right?
Does that need surgery?
It doesn't. He's not 100% sure yet. It sounds like they're going to try these stem cells and do some other things, and hopefully he can avoid surgery. But it's still a 5 to 6 month process with it, you know.
Damn.
But again, though, to me, it goes back to like the culture of Extreme Couture. This guy can certainly be at home. He can be in his woes, which he has been. But he comes back to the gym because he can be a service to the rest of the guys in the room. And everybody else sees that, you know, and it's just that motivation factor just keeps rising.
So back to Francis real quick. PFL's telling me they think he'll fight in September in MMA.
Sure.
Is this news to you? Is this what are you on board with this? Do you like this?
Whatever he wants to do.
Okay.
So I talked to Francis for like an hour last Monday. We just FaceTimed, just chopped it up. And a lot of times we're very rarely talking business.
Sure,
we're just talking. And that was one of the scenarios that he brought up, that they want him to fight sometime between now and September. Didn't really give us a date, so he was working on getting his visa renewed, hopefully come back to the States in May. And if that's the case, you know, I would definitely want to get back to work, back to MMA capacity.
Yeah.
Right? It's never going to harm you to get back in and wrestle and get some of the work in with the boys, and you can always box. You always have that. But man, when you lose so much time on the MMA cardio, the up-down training, the wrestling, and all that stuff, your timing is really, really off. So the more time we have in between, Ariel, is very important for us.
There's a theory that when Conor took the Floyd fight, it changed him as a fighter.
Sure.
Changed his stance. So are you worried about any of this affecting Francis?
Not necessarily worried, but I try to look at the good in it and what it's done with his boxing. But there are some things I think we have to maybe make some adjustments to, especially for the kicks. You can't be in a particular stance, in a boxing stance, and have your foot bladed to the inside because you're going to get chopped up with that lead leg.
Okay.
So we're going to have to do some things a little different. And you know, the Philly shell and everything else that he kind of plays and stuff. So we'll have to go back to a little bit more of the old Predator style. But you know, I definitely have one of the best athletes in the world, and I think he can adapt to whatever we have to do.
Do you think we see him box again in the next year or two?
I think so.
Okay.
Just the competitor in him.
Yeah.
You know, I know that like that loss didn't like shun him away from the sport. I think it really lit another fire under his butt. You know, so I definitely think we'll see him box again. Any
concerns about just a brutal knockout like that, and you know the knockdowns as well? Like, you know, just maybe you take the rest of the year off. Yeah. Well, how do you feel about that?
100%. That was my first concern.
Okay.
Hey man, we're resting. Take some time and get, you know, let's go to some doctors and some neurologists and just make sure you're cleared.
Right.
And then not only are you cleared, let's do no contact for the next 2-3 months. Let's
Is he listening to you?
Yeah, he'll listen.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll listen.
Because he's not with you right now.
Yeah.
So how do you stop him from going to the gym or from doing stuff?
I feel like myself and maybe one or two others are the few resources that he actually listens to. You know, like when he asks me something, he knows I'm not going to lie to him about it. I'm going to tell him what I feel. And I think that's why our relationship is so close, that we'll have those conversations. And he knows I'm not going to say something that isn't for his best interest, you know, and that's why I think why we trust each other so much.
This Renan Ferreira, big guy, hasn't fought anyone quite like Francis. With all due respect to Ryan Bader, I've always considered him a 205er.
Yeah. You
know, how do you feel about the matchup? Really tall, really long, a little green, but powerful. Clearly, how do you feel about the matchup? If that's what it is.
I love the matchup.
You do?
You know, I think he's developed into a very scary heavyweight. I think he's, you know, has that one hit knockout, put a guy to sleep. But I think there's some very good areas that we can exploit that I think Francis is very good at, and I think we can make it a good night for us.
I just had at the beginning of the day we had Tim Simpson.
Yeah, love Tim.
Tim is the man.
Yeah.
He represents Izzy.
Yep.
And he also has a great relationship with Sean.
Sure.
Used to rep him.
Yep.
And I said, like, tell the people why Izzy versus DDP is the right fight to make and not Sean versus DDP. and he was very diplomatic about it.
Right.
And all. But how do you feel about this? How do you feel about Izzy seemingly getting the next crack at the belt and not your guy Sean?
I feel like it's a resume. He has a resume that you can make an argument that he's earned the right to an immediate rematch anytime, right? Or he can kind of skip the line, I think, because of what he's done and how he's built his career. And you can make that argument, right? Why do certain guys deserve this or deserve that? He moves the needle. He has star power, and he's arguably one of the best to ever do it at 185. So it's not like he's lost 2 or 3 in a row and he's skipping the line that far ahead. And I think that, you know, that backstory between DDP and Izzy is what they're trying to sell it on. So I completely understand. And you know, shit, don't lose versus, you know, Sean, don't lose your fight. And we don't have this scenario.
Right. So we talked right before that fight in Toronto. Haven't talked about him after. In retrospect, what do you wish could have happened? It was so close.
Sure.
To ensure the victory and keeps the belt.
So win a little bit more of the optics battle, and people hear me use that word over and over again, but like Sean is death by 1,000 paper cuts when it comes to the jab, right? So sometimes certain judges might just see the same offensive technique over and over and over, and it might be doing a lot of the damage. It might be winning a lot of the fights. But the lead teep and the rear teep are something that we really were putting emphasis on that camp for a number of reasons. One, because DDP had that kind of like step through juggernaut coming down the line, and that teep was going to negate a lot of that. Now, just get him off of your chest. Number two, we wanted to try to wear on the gas tank of him. And by kicking him to his belly, that was going to allow for us to, you know, slow him down. The last thing, which was very important, is it gave another element of scoring to the judges to see, right? And even if it was just a kick to the body or teep, it got away from the death by 1,000 paper cuts via jabs. So that was one thing I think. The other thing too that I'm always harping on Sean about is, man, this dude can wrestle. And I'm not asking him to take DDP down, But in those transitional takedowns where we got taken down and Sean hit a switch, there's opportunities for us to get on top. There's opportunities for us to make that position now, make him feel like, well, shit, I don't know if I want to do that again, right? It's like putting your hand in the cookie jar and no one slapped your hand. So when we got taken down, he got up without 0 consequences. So you have to change that element in his mind. Right when I saw after the first round, 30 seconds, what did DDP do? Shot. Smart. He was trying to steal the optics of a close round. I'm going to score a takedown to try to sway it over my way. I said it to Sean right after round 1. I go, hey, when you hear 30 seconds, you got to know that they're going to try to offensive wrestle. In the second round, did the same thing. And might have won him the round.
Right.
DDP. Right? So you have to understand that when you get taken down and we get back to our feet, don't be afraid to offensive wrestle there. Don't be afraid to switch the tide a little bit. Don't be afraid to crack this dude a couple times and make him worry about coming back up. Because again, it puts back in his head, well, maybe I don't want to shoot anymore. That took a lot of damage coming back up there.
Do you think he won the fight, Sean?
I feel like live, I had us winning 1, 2, and 5.
Okay.
I had us winning 1, 2, and 5. And you know what screwed me up too, Ariel, is like, okay, so on the apron, they'll show the live odds, like for the pay-per-view.
Damn, as the fight is progressing.
Yeah. So,
and it's like,
yeah. It's like after round 1, I'm like, look, and I'm like,
oh my God.
All right, minus 235. Okay.
Wow, I can't believe you're looking at this.
Fuck yeah, look at everything.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm a nerd, so I'm looking at all this stuff. I was like, oh, minus 235. All right. They saw what I saw.
Yeah.
That round. After round 2, I don't know, it was like minus 300 or something. Like, oh, cool. The odds maker saw what I saw too, right? Me being a Vegas boy, I'm like, I'm with these dudes. All right, I saw the same thing that they saw. And then after round 3, I didn't like the way the flow of the fight was going. I even kind of scored us round 3, and I know one of the judges gave us round 3, but I didn't like the way the complexion, the flow of the fight was going. I think I even said that to him after 3. I was like, bro, I didn't like that round. I don't like the way it was going. You know, I need you to pick up the pace a little bit more and do some other things and make some of these adjustments. You know, and so I'm hoping we get this Costa fight figured out. I'm hoping we go out and get.
You like that matchup for him?
I do. Man, Costa's a beast, though.
He is.
This dude's a beast, man.
Have you ever trained with him?
No, never trained with him.
Okay.
Cornered against him once with Uriah Hall. You know, dude, I love his.
Were you surprised by how he looked against Whitaker after the layoff?
Not really.
That fight.
I did. I thought he looked good. You know.
I'm saying in a good way because you know you weren't sure what you were going to get. He had the elbow stuff.
No, I thought
almost
he looked good.
A year and a half away.
Yeah, I mean, it was like one of those where you watch. I mean, to me, Robert Whitaker, skill for skill, is the premier guy in that division, right? If there's no Izzy Adesanya, Robert Whitaker is the champ for a long time, and so to perform as well as he did against Whitaker. You know, Costa's a beast, and he's back. Like, this dude's it's gonna be a tough fight. I don't know if it's a 5-rounder or 3-rounder. I haven't been told any of that stuff yet. I know it's a pay-per-view, so it should be a title fight. So I'm guessing a 3-rounder. And then that to me is like, as a coach, like, what does that favor? Does that favor us a little bit more? Or does it favor him? You know,
what would you prefer?
Just because of Sean's style and just he's a dog, like 5 rounds is always great because he can put dudes in deep waters, you know. Whereas I think for a 3-rounder, Costa's able to kind of go hard, fast, stay on that pace, you know. So it'll be an interesting matchup for sure.
By the way, I asked you about Francis after the fight. Just curious, like Sean's whole thing was like, I don't care about the belt, you know. That's part of his charm, I think.
Yeah.
How was it in the back after, you know, it didn't go his way in Toronto? Could you see that maybe he really did care about the belt?
A little bit, yeah. I don't. It's weird because it's like you think the belt and you think like this inanimate object, like oh whatever, and yeah, I didn't really want it, but it's like, is it the status that comes with it? I don't know. Like, you don't want to diminish a championship, like bro. Like you and I talked about this.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in there with Joe Benavidez, and I've seen the guys that have just clawed and scraped and tried so hard to be there, and how heartbreaking it is.
They'd want nothing more than
just
one
to
night.
Get that belt, man. You know, and that part will always be hard for me because I want him to feel that, and I know deep down he really did in Australia.
Okay.
I know he did, man. Like there were so many things I think that it brought up for him that of his journey. Right, like he wasn't supposed to be there.
Right,
he wasn't supposed to be in that position, you know. And then he was able to go and obtain that. And it's not necessarily the belt, but it's the status of being the champion, man. Like, you should take pride in that. I think he did. I think he did to a capacity. And I think once it was gone, he's kind of been more hungry about it now.
And just, you know, I recognize that this is a question for him, but is he cool? Is he okay? You know, he wrote some stuff about, you know, he talks about like CTE, and he talks about, I don't really want to do this for very long, or, you know what I mean? Like, he's very open, which I appreciate. Just he openly talks about how much he's being offered. Like, there's a lot of fascinating stuff there. But from like the mental side of things, when you see that, do you reach out, or do you just say that's Sean being Sean?
No, I do, and it's a weird scenario, because you and I have talked about this like personally. Like, Sean and I are like best friends. We don't hang out. Like, I'm his coach. He trains at our gym. He's a great teammate. He follows the standard that we all set. But there's a lot of things that Sean says and does that I don't want to even touch or get behind. But when it comes to things like that, just as a friend, that's when it's like, yo, we good? You want to talk? You want to reach out? And then he also has to meet you halfway.
Right.
He also has to say, like, yeah, man, like, I want to get this off my chest, or talk. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a pussy because you want to talk about these kind of things. These men and women go through so much, especially in this sport. Then you combine the fact with your brain damage that you're accruing year after year after year in the CTE, and then you add in the fact of this guy's history and past. Dude, don't be afraid to talk about some of this stuff. It doesn't have to be on Theo Vaughn. Right. We can go grab a coffee and sit and just chat, me and you, and it stays in the trust tree. And it also helps me understand more about my fighter, right? Like what I said to him in round 5. Right, in the Dricus fight. Hey, bro, you're fighting for the little kid inside you that you can protect, and I've never felt that dude just go like.
I just got goosebumps right now.
Right, I know why he fights. I know who he fights for. He fights for that little kid inside of him that he couldn't protect. He'll fight anybody and everybody in the world for that little guy, right? And who's in here. And I said that to him going in round 5, and we saw what he did in round 5. I wish I would have said it in round 4.
Right.
You know, but you got to know who and what your fighter. Who and what they're fighting for, you know, and those are things I think that I got to be better at, and especially with him,
Something I've never asked a coach. I've asked a bunch of fighters this, but I'm curious from a coach's perspective. At the Apex, which I hate, just as a fan. Yeah, I'm just wondering, do you like or dislike coaching at the Apex like you were this past weekend? If only because you can hear what the other corner is saying. You can like. Is there a beauty to that? Is there an advantage, or do you like the? I'm not talking about the hoopla. I'm just talking about from a tactical standpoint. Is there any advantage to actually being at the Apex for you? Well, or communication with your fighter.
So we made it. We made it an art, right? So,
yeah, I mean it's been like 4 years now, right?
Yeah. So when the pandemic hit, we started to train differently. Remember, no one was really in the gym unless you had a fight. If you had a fight, you were allowed to bring 2 training partners in. It was very small, very minimal group. It was Francis, Dan Ige, Claudia Gadelia, whoever that we had on that card, and maybe a handful of others that were in camp. What we started to do was we started to train with the music off, completely off. The first thing we talked about was not only can everybody hear, the most important thing is the judges can hear. So we needed to start training ourselves to speak in a different way that always sounded like we were winning the fight.
Wow.
So I would say certain things tactically. My second would say things that only were to politic to the judges.
Wow. That is fascinating.
So anytime I would say this or we got hit with something or whatever, it was never like, oh no, or never, anything was never negative that came out of our mouths. Everything that came out of our mouths had to be positive and had to sway towards the judges.
Wow.
And if you go back and look, Dan Ige, very close split decision win against Edson Barboza. Claudia Gadelia, very close split decision win against Angela Hill, right? We started to understand that, okay, if we're saying certain things and we sound like we're losing the fight, human nature, they're going to think you're losing the fight. So I started to talk to Krause about it more because James was there. James had Anthony Smith that same time. And I remember James getting some flack for his cornering. But James and I were out there for this whole time. And I was like, James, you got to think. They're hearing you over everything else. So, you know, you're getting flack for what you're saying, and it sounds this, this, and this. I go, but let's change it up and let's start saying things more to politic. And he's like, all right. So then now you see when James is in the Apex, I had a corner against James in the Apex once. It's like, God damn it, like James is doing so, you know, he's getting me now. You know, so that was one of the kind of the things that we really, really worked on early on. So your coaching tactics, to answer your question, is you have to change your coaching tactics, especially when there's not a lot of crowd noise. And early on, that was like no crowd noise.
So how long did it take for you to figure that out? Like, was it off the, you know, May of 2020 it started? By June, are you doing this? By July, or did it take
so I try to look at everything as a whole, from the travel, from hey, the things to expect. How are we going to cut the weight if there's no sauna, if this isn't open? Like, think of everything, not just the fight. But that was really the one thing that jumped off the page to me was, oh, they're going to hear everything we have to say. We have to be on cue. So that was before we even got to Jacksonville. And that's why I think we were doing very good systematically as a corner.
Okay.
And then from that point on, everything was in the Apex. There wasn't really anything going on, or fan-wise. There's no one in the room.
Right.
So I felt like we had that taken care of for the most part. Now, as the head coach, always go in and tell your corner, right, or speak to your corner, like whatever. If you're the chief, hey, second, this is what I'm asking you for. This is your role. We need this role. So when Paul Felder fought RDA, Duke Rufus was the head coach. I was the second. I got Chris Lee to believe that fucking Paul Felder won that fight.
Wow.
Right? Like, even Paul's like, what, dude? Like,
wow. What are you saying? Like, what kind of stuff?
Dude,
like,
I'm just politicking. Politicking. That landed. Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh,
Paul. Oh, he's hurt. Look at him wanting to wrestle because he can't strike with you, Paul.
Wow.
This dude just keeps grabbing you. We got all the damage in this fight. We got all the damage. You know, just whatever I can come to mind, just to talk to this judge that's sitting right next to me.
Are you ever taking cues from what they're saying to their guy? Can you ever be,
sometimes, because I picked up on a lot of codes during that time. Like, I've heard a lot of like opposing corners that you might corner against a bunch. You'll hear their codes or their patterns. So I'll jot notes down and see if it rings true throughout. So, hey, they'll say this code, it means this. And then you go watch it later on down the line. Hey, they said that code. Yep, that was what it was. So then you'll get a beat on what they're saying sometimes as far as their codes go.
Do you use a lot of codes?
Not necessarily. Sometimes I will say certain things, but I'll always say, like, okay, let's say, for example, I'll say, read the slip. Read their slip. If they're slipping a certain direction, hey, Ige, read that slip. Dan now knows I'm looking at a defensive flaw in our opponent, but I want allow Dan to have 5 or 6 different options to exploit that defensive flaw.
Okay.
I'm not asking him to throw a head kick. I'm not just throwing an overhand or a calf kick or whatever. It might be a combination of one of those 5 things. Hey, I'm seeing this. Whatever weapon you have to counter that in that moment, then do it.
Okay, but you're not throwing things out like Omaha, and that means something, like code words?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, okay.
Sometimes. So, hey, it's close. I need a takedown. I'll yell something, right? If whatever code we put live for that, we used to use Iowa. I'll throw it out. Iowa. It's a close round. Score one.
Okay.
You know, so I'll put things out there. But yes, definitely. But I think if you get in the trap of yelling out combinations, by the time it processes in my brain to yell it, and I yell it to you, and that combination, it's long gone.
Okay. Yeah.
It's long gone. But you can say, like, hey, when you're getting this, there's a combination to follow up, and that's sometimes more in the corner. In between the rounds.
Do you not like when they film you in between rounds?
I don't care.
You don't care? Okay, it's obviously riveting, but I'm just wondering, are you cognizant of, obviously you don't know when there's a camera there, so you don't know what's going on air, but you might want to say something that you don't want someone to use down the line, no?
No, I've said some heinous things. I got in trouble for calling Izzy some things in the corner, but I said it because of the moment. I'm passionate in that moment, right? Like,
and I don't mean like getting canceled and stuff. I mean like if you want to give like tactical things.
Sure.
Have you ever watched it and be like, I wish that didn't get picked up?
No.
Okay.
Never. Because in the moment, honestly, Ariel, it's like whatever it takes to win in that moment.
Got it. Okay.
And then
deal with the rest later.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Okay, we gave this away, or I said this, whatever. Then next time you have to change it. You have to adapt. You have to do something different. But in the moment, no, man, I'm locked in. It's the most comfortable I've ever been in my entire life, and anything I've ever done is that minute. Like, I love that time. I love that time.
Well, why do you love it so much?
It's just something about that moment between coach and fighter. Just something of a connection that you have with each individual that gets on that stool. To be able to draw the best out of them in that moment, even if within adversity, even if you're up, whatever it may be. Like, sometimes your tactics change. I'll crack a joke every once in a while. I'll say some stuff, or sometimes you have to get after a guy. You have to get on him. But all in all, I just feel like the sweat equity that you have with your fighter from years and years and years of hard work is culminated in that 1 minute, and to me, it's magic.
Who's your favorite coach not named you in MMA? And I know you wouldn't pick yourself, but like, who's a coach that you're like, I love his style, I love his connection, I love the way he works, I love the way he corners.
Yeah, it's hard to pick just one, but a guy that I've always appreciated the way that he coaches and the way that he speaks to his fighters is Mark Montoya. I like, he has a calmness to him, but he also has a very direct connection with a lot of his fighters. Tyson Chartier, I love, because Tyson comes from that small gym background, and it's like a family. So when like Tyson's talking to you, it's like your brother's talking to you. I think a guy who is very overlooked, who's been a mainstay in the sport for a long time, is John Crouch, Danny Castillo. I love watching a lot of these guys, man. I really do. But it always goes to me back to that connection that you have with coach and fighter. There's an element of belief. When a coach says something, you can see that the response of the fighter is they actually believe, because you've been there with them. You've been through the shit with them.
So a card like UFC 300, as of right now, you're not working, you're not cornering anyone. Are you the kind of person who's like, oh, I want to be there as a fan, or you want to be on the couch and take advantage of the fact that you have a rare Saturday off?
Yeah, I'm excited because like my son's got a soccer game and a football game, and my daughter's got a football game.
Isn't that the best?
Yeah, it's the best. And then I definitely want to see like my guys and guys that I have connections with. I want to see them perform. I want to see them do well. But there's also such a relief element.
Yeah.
To just kind of have a weekend off and chill.
You don't have a lot of those.
No, I don't. So I'll go to PFL tomorrow.
Do you have anyone on that?
We have Alex Polizzi, Sadabu, and Mads Burnell.
Okay.
And I'm not cornering.
Okay.
I'm going. They're my teammates.
Got it.
So I'm going there to be there to support. And then Saturday, it's like one of those things where I'll just hang out with Knox and hey, you want to watch the fights? It's not like a overpressing thing to me if I have to watch it or not. But I will watch it because there's a lot of good things you can take of it from a technical standpoint.
Which fight on this very deep card, as a fan, interests you the most?
Man, I think you can make an argument for like so many of these like stylistic matchups. Okay, definitely Jamal Hill because of the backstory with the injury. And then Alex Pereira because I think he's somewhat being not necessarily overlooked, but like how fast this guy's risen to this amount of success. He can be argued as one of the best to ever do it, right? Like if he goes out and performs well against Jamal Hill, right? And then you have a guy who never lost a title, catastrophic injury, and he's very, very good. Like when you sit and talk to Jamal about MMA, I'm always blown away by how the depth of his knowledge and really his vision. He sees things very, very well. The Arman Sarukian fight and Charles Oliveira is dude,
that's my favorite fight.
Right? Like
I just have no idea.
No idea.
How do you think it actually plays out?
So it's interesting when I look at it stylistically. Guys that follow Charles to the ground but play half guard, they do very well because they have an element of ground and pound to me out of half guard, like the old school Randy Couture style where you sit on the bottom leg and you eliminate the guard play. I don't think Sarukian will be scared to go to the ground with him, and I think that's going to add a different type of element where you can win that fight there. But it's tricky because where Charles Oliveira is so good is the transitional submission game.
Yes.
On the get-ups.
Yeah.
He's latching on your neck and your head. You leave your head in the wrong position. So if this ends up being a striking contest, I kind of lean towards Charles in that. I kind of, just because of the range. So it's a very, very interesting fight when you break it down and flip a coin and you're like, oh yeah, that's who's gonna win. Like I get it.
Yeah.
But that one's interesting to me. Max and Gaethje, because Max has had so much time now to develop into a 55er and grow into it, like be in his body. That one interests me a lot because God, these dudes are just gonna be juggernauts standing there just beating the crap out of each other. But I'd love to see which type of game plan they try to implement.
How do you think Kayla will do?
The weight cut's always gonna be the question. Right? But I think that she has a brilliant team behind her. You have to just assume that she's going to be perfect on the weight cut. And I think that, you know, when you put somebody down like Holly with the attributes that Kayla has, I just don't see how Holly's going to fare well off of her back versus Kayla. You know, what she's capable of doing. So the cardio aspect will be the question mark. You know, what happens if that was a hard weight cut? What happens after round 1? And how does she feel if it's just round 2 and 3 and she's kind of dogging it? And then Holly can snipe her from the outside. That's where Holly has the best chance. Weather the storm in round 1. Let's see how the cardio holds up in rounds 2 and 3. But man, I think Kayla's a beast.
I can't wait to see. I mean, there's so many. Again, we've talked, you know, in the media about this card and the way it was structured. But like these stories, how does Aljo look at 45? The Cody fight is fascinating, right?
Yeah, first fight of the night.
Yeah,
like,
against
what?
Figgy, you know, his second fight at 135.
Yeah.
Jamal's layoff, Alexander Rakic's layoff. He's been out for 2 years.
It was a knee injury, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 years.
What fight was that?
Anthony Smith.
When he hurt his knee?
I believe off the top of my head, yes.
Oh, wow.
2 years ago.
Wow.
May of 22.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's...
He beat Smith.
Yeah, but did he injure himself in the fight? Or am I... It's been a long day. I might be having a brain fart right now. It's definitely May of 22. I definitely know that it was his last fight. Why don't I just look right now?
Yeah, now I'm like racking my brain.
Yes. Oh, we got Alexander Rakic. His last fight was that got canceled. The Blachowicz. He was supposed to fight Blachowicz on your card, right? And Thiago Santos. No, sorry, Jan Blachowicz. Yes, it was Jan Blachowicz.
That's where he hurt his knee.
Yes, TKO knee injury.
Wow.
Smith was 2 fights prior.
And what year was that? 2022?
2022, yeah.
Wow,
so it's been 2 years. Like I said, Aljo, Kayla at 35. You know, there's just so many, like, Jamal. The Jamal thing still blows me away.
Yeah.
Like, Achilles, he injured his Achilles in July. I was like, okay, he's probably coming back International Fight Week.
You would think.
At the earliest.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And now he's back. July is 5 plus 4, 9 months later.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
Yeah. I didn't know that he was even in the running to take a fight. When I was like helping him out, we're hitting pads, and like Heather was there from the PI. She's just watching him move, and we're just hitting. I was like, okay, cool. This is part of his rehab. And then he's like, can I come in and spar? I was like, yeah. Are you clear? He's like, yeah. Came in and sparred, looked great. You know, but I didn't realize it was like because they were trying to fit him in for 300.
Wow.
Yeah, it was that like that quick. And I'm like, yo. I text him. He's like, yeah.
He didn't tell you.
He didn't tell me because I think he was just trying to see how he felt.
Okay.
But like, you know, being there with him and holding for him, feeling his power, I'm like, oh, dude, this dude's a nightmare.
Does that happen often where Heather from the PI, because you don't need to go to the PI for stuff, so like where she comes and sees the athletes at your spot?
I went there.
Oh, you went there?
I went there,
Got it.
yeah.
Okay,
so
okay.
Heather and Jamal wrote me and said, are you free to hit? I want to see him move and see how he looks and see how he feels. And I'm like, yeah, I'll come down. And we did like 3 or 4 times and, you know, moved around. You know, hey, this feels like this or this. And she's like, okay, cool, we'll work on it and do those things. So, but never in my mind, I was like, oh, he's getting ready to fight for 300.
Just wanted to see if
this
he was
is like
good.
for him for rehab, you know. And then as he started to progress more and more, I can see his confidence starting to go and go. So I was, man, I was happy for him. I was super happy for him, you know, that he got this opportunity.
So what's your next big one? Who's next?
We got Kai Kamaka next week. That's out at PFL. Head out for that. Then what else we got? Oh, dude, it's the lineup. So poor Manel, another fight he's out of, the main event, you know. And then, yeah, just bad luck. And
I
then,
saw Kai France once.
Manel now?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Great fight.
Yeah.
You know, they've gone back
I know
and
they've
forth.
gone, yes, yes.
But these two guys,
Yes,
you know, it's
yes,
like if we'll ever make it to the cage, we'll see. And then, you know, so we got possibly Sean.
Yep.
Roman Dolidze.
Yep.
We got Puna fighting. We got Cody Stamen fighting. Man, like that's all for June. May, we got a bunch of guys on the card. It's just constantly roller coaster of guys.
It is crazy that this like massive card is the one where you're, you know, I could have seen a scenario where you'd have like 3 guys on you, or 4 guys on you. What's the most you've had on a UFC?
4.
4.
Yeah, I've had 4.
So stressful.
Yeah, I've had 3 back to back to back.
Oh my dear.
Yeah,
you just like go back and then you come back.
Yeah, and you know,
you changed the outfit by the way.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Puna, Dan Ige, Sean Strickland.
And you have to change like the shirt and all that.
Yeah,
oh my god.
Run back and then.
How many of those do you have at this point, and what do you do with all of them?
My wife just is like, get rid of these.
Yes,
so,
yes.
I literally have behind my stairwell at the gym like 3 huge boxes of just old Reebok gear,
Oh my God.
old jerseys, all that stuff.
And you can't reuse?
I can.
They just give it to you every time.
They give it to me every time. So like my last Chris Curtis jersey, I have a young kid at the gym. He's been like, he was a kid that was bullied a bunch in school. I gave him like a scholarship to the gym.
Oh wow.
So he's like my kind of like we're all big brothers to him now. You know,
Amazing.
And he loves Chris. So I gave my jersey to him. You know, so things like that. Like you'll have a young kid, or you have a fan, or you have a family member, and then I'll just usually give that stuff to those people. And
How'd you find out about that kid?
Joe Martinez.
Okay.
Joe Martinez
The ring
called
announcer.
me. Yep.
Okay.
Joe Martinez called me and said, "Hey, I have a neighbor or family friend of ours. He's being bullied very badly at a school. It's kind of close to my house, and it just went on this whole thing." And he said, "Would you guys be willing to just talk to him?" I said, "Yeah. Will you bring him by the gym?" I brought him in the gym, and it was myself, Francis, Sean. There was a bunch of us.
Wow.
Brad Tavares.
Wow.
So I just listened to the kid. Just wanted to hear him. You know.
How old?
He's in 7th grade.
Okay.
He's in 7th grade, and it was bullying to the extent of it was harmful for his health.
Ugh.
It was harmful for his health. So brought him in, talked to him, and then I told Francis kind of what was going on with him. Francis pulled him aside and talked to him for like 45 minutes.
Wow.
Just him and Francis.
Wow.
Right. So the younger brother has had some health issues, more like stroke. There's just so many tough things with his family, you know, that was going on with the 2 sons. So I asked the mom, I said, "If you're willing, can I give these?" I'm not saying you don't have the money to do it,
Right.
but I'd feel better if I can give them scholarship for the jiu-jitsu program if you can get them here every day. This is like 2 years ago, and they've been in there every day.
Wow.
The kid's competing now. He's doing all these great things through jiu-jitsu, through the
No
gym.
martial arts background prior to anything.
None. But it had nothing to do with, to me, about like learning self-defense. It had to do with more about being around the culture of extreme. Like, dude, he's got 5 or 6 big brothers now that will go pick him up if something ever happened to him. You can call Chris Curtis, Brad, Francis, Sean, me, whatever. But he feels a part of something now that he doesn't have to feel like he's just this lonely kid at school. Man. You know, so no, it's been a project, and like hearing his mom write me and just say like how appreciative she is for that relationship, that she sees a whole new kid in him, means the world to us. Confidence, man. That's the biggest thing. So when I see him in the gym, you know, like sometimes I lose sight of what our true purpose is, right? It's the wins and losses, the fights, and this and that. Man, we have such a ripple effect on our community and the people that we're surrounded with, that we can be positive. Sometimes seeing him, like even when I'm down, I was down on Monday, I was bummed about Chris. He comes over, gives me a big old hug. He's like, "I'm sorry about Chris," and then perspective hits right away. You're like, "Oh man, I gotta pick myself up because of you know, Brennan's seeing how I am."
Right.
So brought him the jersey and stuff like that, you know. So we have a good community in that gym, man.
You're a beautiful soul.
I appreciate you, brother.
Man, this was so much fun. Great that we got to do this in person.
I know, man, I'm stoked.
We got to do the 1-minute one in the locker room over there. That was just like a little taste. But when I knew we were doing this, I would, you know, I don't get the opportunity to do it in person. It's just a different vibe when you're in person as opposed to Zoom. Man. So thank you. I know it's a stressful day and you have to go back, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna grab some lunch. I'll head back. We'll have I got 3 o'clock private, and then we'll do 3:30 spar for the smaller guys.
Golly.
Yeah. So busy.
Thank
week,
you
man.
so much. I appreciate it. Congrats on everything.
Thank you, brother.
The wins and the losses.
Yeah.
You know, the highs.
Hey, congrats for Coach of the Year too. Like for you guys.
Of course.
Like, I appreciate that. It really means the world to me.
Of course.
Especially coming from you guys.
And the year's still young.
Yes, sir.
You could go back to back.
Yeah. Well, you know, we'll work one day at a time.
That is Eric Nicksick, the head coach over at Extreme Couture. In a matter of moments, we're actually going to be joined by Merab. He's going to come in here, so that's a bit of a surprise. But really appreciate it. Enjoy the fights on Saturday.
Thank you, brother.
And good luck with all the upcoming fights. There he is, everyone. I stand up to say we're just live here. We just keep going.
Keep rolling them in and out.
UFC 300.
All right, brother.
We do it big.
It's good to see you. I'll see you at sparring, 3:30. Don't be late.
I'll be there. Can I spar someone?
Yeah, glove you up.
Okay.
Glove you up.
That'd be great. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it very much. Hey, if you like this video, give us the old thumbs up. Subscribe as well. You could get many more of these videos on the channel, so please do that. We would love you forever if you did so.